Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 129, and we're back with a faction takedown, where we take a look at a faction or a sectorial, and we kind of talk about what makes them good, what makes them powerful, and what their weaknesses are, and kind of talk about how you can pick that apart and how you can fight them when they're across the table from you. And for this episode, we're going to take a look at the Nomad Nation, talking about Tunguska. So, this is our episode on how we're going to help you take down the mob. But before we get into that, we do want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Mo Games. Mythic's Online Emporium is an online supplier of Infinity that you can find at mo-games.com. And as part of their sponsorship of Metachemistry, all of our paid patrons get a 10% discount code to their store. And whether you're a patron or not, if you are part of our Discord and you select the Mo Giveaways role in the Server Roles channel, you'll be entered in to win a monthly raffle of a $40 coupon code. So to win that, you just be a part of the Discord, click that button, and you'll need a United States shipping address for Mo to send that to. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And for this episode, we have Ian and myself. So, Ian, how have your hobby and gaming endeavors been over the last little bit? I feel like these check-ins have been so rare lately.
Yeah, we got a local tournament in about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Yes, 2 weeks ago. I was at
That's
a
the
wedding
one.
in between. And that was pretty fun. A lot of next wave players coming out, and I came in middle of the pack, and it was like 8 people. I came in like 4th, but it was pretty fun.
Sure.
Getting to hang out with people and play some games. And
Very
outside of
cool.
that, we're looking at maybe finally eventually getting to try out the Obsidian Protocol game, because this Kickstarter that a bunch of us backed like 6 years ago is finally starting to ship some stuff, not all the stuff, but some stuff.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, there's supposed to be like 3 factions. It's like it's a mech combat game from this Chinese company, and has a really cool concept, and like all the models are reasonably big, but like fully magnetized, so you kind of like build them, like you buy parts
It's fun.
to like build it, and
Mm-hmm.
so each part does like different things, and so it's a really cool concept, but they had trouble getting out the door, so they're shipping each faction separately. So we got the first faction like a while back. I want to say like a year ago, and they're really cool, but there's nothing you can do with them. So now the
Right.
second
Nothing else to
faction
play with.
finally shipping, and there's a rules PDF because the finalized rulebook isn't available yet, kind of thing. So we'll see. Maybe something will happen with this. Maybe it won't. I'm not too worried about it
Gotcha.
either way.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, at least they're cool minis. It's hard to go wrong with mechs.
Yeah, they are actually really cool minis.
Yeah, for me, I've been trying to get some reps with Next Wave. So that's been fun. And they've been really interesting to kind of work through because they just feel, as listeners may have heard in our last episode, kind of getting our first impressions, they feel quite a bit different. And their list structure is a fair bit different than most other factions, it feels like. But they're interesting and they can do some fun stuff and they have neat tech and they have some unique rules and stuff, and that's pretty fun. I've been throwing them mostly into other variations of Combined or Pano lately, is kind of how that's mostly ironed out. But yeah, they've been pretty fun. I've done a bunch of dinosaurs and a Team Achilles core list that was fun, and playing with the Skyhound, which seems really solid. So yeah, they've been neat. It's been good to kind of try some other stuff, though. I am interested in like rotating around factions some more, especially as models are still coming out for next wave to kind of limit proxying needs. But yeah, it's been good, and haven't gotten as much hobbying as maybe I would have liked lately. But I'm getting some basing done for my own Tunguskan reinforcements because I picked up the switchers and the triggermen, and I've got some Been getting bits together for the jungle bases for my next wave, so we'll see how that turns out.
Nice.
Yeah. So, as far as Tunguska itself goes, let's kind of outline this a little bit with their general strengths and weaknesses. So, why don't we start off with what they're good at? And Ian, do you kind of want to kick that off?
Yep, they're good at hacking.
Very true. Some of
Uh,
the best.
yeah, they're great at hacking because they have the
Hmm.
Interventor, which
Yep.
Whip 15, BTS 9, just kind of crazy,
Yeah.
and all of
And
the
they're cheap.
cheap upgrades with Trinity -3, like all kinds of nasty stuff on them. So they have one of the best hackers in the game, combined with really good force projection through repeater network.
Hmm. I agree.
Lots of remotes, lots of pictures, lots of deployable repeaters. It's kind of gross. And then, of course, they also have Mary Problems, who's another one of the best hackers in the game at Whip 14, but has all of the hacking devices with all of the different weird upgrades. With like
She has a
plus one
lot
versus
going on.
Oblivion and AP on her Trinity and BTS of 6. So, like, she's really good with some forward deployment and climbing plus to get into some weird areas. So, yeah. And also has a pitcher. So, like, they really have access to great hacking, being able to get it where it needs to be, and they're gross.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they don't have the same sort of like turn zero repeater net that you might find in Corregidor or
Hmm.
maybe Bakunin, but once they start, they can expand very, very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, I would also say that they have really strong, well, I would say they have good vision control. Like they have a number of options, like they have some cheap options for smoke in the Zellenkriegers and Den McConnelly. And then if you want to have super reliable smoke, you can bring Perseus, and Perseus is a great pick with fire teams that you're often going to want to have. He gets an extra burst on all his BS attacks, so he's throwing 2 or 2.5 dice on 13s for smoke. Because they have the interventors, it's very easy to include even a couple Hacking Device Plus models if you want and have white noise that way. You'll be moving up with repeaters, or again, you can get repeaters kind of where you need them, and so you can pop those up wherever. And they do have a little bit of eclipse in the form of the Disco Baller on the Kulak, which I see periodically, but overall, like they have a pretty decent way to avoid fights if they need to. Because I would say that's one thing is they're not the best at just straight gunfights. They do have some models that can do it very well, but generally speaking, that's not their primary game plan. But other strengths,
They do have some pretty top tier gunfighters, though.
I would say, I mean, they do have some very good gunfighters, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to be as good as like anything you could find.
Hmm.
Like the Salamandra's great,
Yeah.
but like the Drago, for instance, is just a little bit better. But yeah, I mean the that is kind of the main fire superiority piece in the faction is the Salamandra, as tags often are for their factions. But
Mm.
they have some other good guns, but they don't have quite as many of those like high punch guns. Like they don't really have much long range AP outside of the Salamandra or like a multi
Yeah.
sniper.
Yeah, no, but I'm
Right.
thinking of like the Kriza Borak as well. It doesn't have specialized ammo. It's throwing more, especially linked, more dice than anything, and getting the BS attack -3 in there as well on a BS 13 platform is pretty solid.
Yeah, the Crease is a solid gunfighter for sure. Being able to throw potentially, roll 6 dice out is a lot of
Hmm.
fun. It's not the only one in the game that does it anymore, but it does
But
feel
there's
real good.
only a couple that really do anymore.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I would say their close assault is primarily in their characters.
Mhm.
They do have some good close quarters combat. Like Kriegers and Denma are good, like deterrent level CC in my mind, where they
Mhm.
can fight back against a CC model and make it sort of a coin toss or so. But when you look at like Perseus is quite good, Wolfgang is very good in CC,
Mhm.
and then Raoul Spectre is very good in CC. Like again, these aren't the best you can find anywhere sort of pieces, but they are things that you would want to keep in mind if you see Tunguska across the table.
Yeah,
In my
yeah,
mind, especially Raoul.
yeah, for sure. I think that outside of the handful of characters that they really do suffer in the CC department, though, like anything else that Eve's just middling CC is going to run over most of the faction pretty easily if you don't have one of these characters kind of nearby to say, no, 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 that you don't want to be over here.
True. Yeah, if you see, um, like you'll want to apply your CC against them, against things like their combat remotes or against Hollow Men or things like that, where you can really prey on those weaknesses. So I would say one of the other really strong aspects of Tunguska is their maneuverability. Like they have a ton of pieces with special movement skills. They have some units with very high movement. They have um, not very many, but they have a couple drop troops that are quite fast once they hit the table. But things like the forward deployment Lunicod with 8-2 move, or Hollow Men that are 6-2 super jump, or the Stempler, which is 6-4 super jump. They have the Zonauticas, and they have motorized bounty hunters, and they have just a surprising amount of super jump and climbing
Hmm.
plus just kind of scattered throughout. Like they can really
Hmm.
get around the table potentially.
And the meteor's on.
Right, exactly.
Put it where you want it.
Yeah. And Mr. Spectre. God,
Yes.
Raoul is just a monster. But yeah, any other strengths you wanted to shout out, or shall we move on to weaknesses?
Oh, we can move on to some weaknesses.
All right, so things to pay attention to, these sort of pressure points you can apply against Tunguska. And as we've just mentioned, CC, outside of some of their specialists, they can be very vulnerable to even moderately good CC units. Like Hollow Men are intensely vulnerable. They're CC 11, and they just hope that they kill you with a chain colt on the way in, sort of model. But otherwise, they're not going to do anything in CC. They'll use combat remotes like Cyclones or Vostoks or similar, which, those will typically be in the 14, 15 CC bracket with no skills.
Hmm.
There are other pieces like even the Kriza. The Kriza has a CC that looks like it's about to do something at 19, but doesn't have any skills to back it up. Is not really that difficult to smack around in close combat either. And same thing with their tags. Basically, any of their gun pieces are going to be easy to take out that way.
The Anaconda can hold its own slightly because it got a bump to CC 21.
I mean,
Slightly.
it does have CC 21, yes.
It's a lot better than the Salamandra is at like what 17.
I mean, yes, but if you have something that's willing to get into CC with your tag, like it's already done
Hmm.
for. 21's not going to save it.
No, it's immune to AP.
Immune AP is somewhat relevant.
It is somewhat relevant in the CC realm. Like it's armor 7. Period. Just you gotta weight of dice it. You gotta keep making it take saves.
Sure, sure. Okay. Other things that stand out to you that you can kind of pick on your local Tunguska player with.
Yeah. So conversely, to them being the hacking faction, they're also a hackable faction. Like nearly
Sure.
half of their list is hackable, which granted, everything that they have has BTS at least of 3, most of it 6. But you're not going to have a lot of opportunities with them to sneak around the board if the opponent has any level of repeater network up, especially with some models if they ignore stealth. There's just a lot of the really good stuff is very hackable. So that is something to be aware of, because even if it's not effective hacking, just being able to force them to take saves and spend orders moving and resetting to get through those hacking areas with something that is hackable that isn't necessarily itself a hacker, it can really slow them down.
Yeah, I would say that if your opponent, if you're playing against Tunguska and you can put out a good repeater net of your own, it can really slow down a Tunguskan advance with many of their pieces. Like that can really kind of stymie things. If you manage to like strike at their hackers directly,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you get a pitcher near their hackers and can burn them down, like uh, I wouldn't recommend that, but you could potentially do it because trying to Trinity an Interventor is an exercise in futility more often than not, because they need what 6, 9, 15s to save, which doesn't feel very good. I
Yeah.
mean, you can get it through, and somebody could just tank a roll, but uh, if you can get like a drop troop or an impersonator, because then they're worse than most line troops in those sorts of engagements. But yeah, if you can scalpel out their hackers, that really makes them very vulnerable. Because there's usually while their hackers are high quality and they are very cost efficient, that still tends to be a good chunk of many Tunguskan lists.
Yeah.
So if you take out that hacking power, then you've really stymied your Tunguska player's game plan a bit. But visors, they
Mm-hmm.
don't really have much in terms of multispectral visors. And so if you can leverage heavy mimetism, that can go a long way. Like they have Grenzers, which you'll see semi-regularly with
Mm-hmm.
MSV1. But otherwise, I think that's their only MSV1, and
They have
their only
a
MSV2.
rounder.
Oh, that's right, the Rounders. Yeah, the Rounders have MSV1 on all of them.
Yeah, rounders are MSV1, Biovisor, and Marksmanship. So that's actually kind of a nasty combo. Depending on your loadout, they're not terribly expensive. Like 17 for a boarding shotgun, up to 26 for a Red Fury. But
Yeah, that's true.
getting 2 of those. But yeah, Grenzers, the one you got to worry for is the multi sniper because it's MSV1 with Marksmanship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
the one you'll most commonly see.
if you can at least throw some smoke in front of it to make it also take the penalties, like that's pretty good, but it's not great.
Yeah, they typically won't have great options if you want to lay down smoke. Like maybe there'll be a Grenzer sniper. I don't see Rounders very often, but every
No.
once in a while, I think those will pop up. And then their only MSV2 piece is the Shock Marksman Rifle Cheer Killer, which I think you will see very rarely. Like you'll almost
Yeah.
never see that piece because it just doesn't bring enough to the table,
Yeah.
even
And
with
for
the MSV2.
what you're getting, it's a little pricey, so I can very much see that one not hitting the table very much. You're gonna see um the Grenzer with the sniper rifle over this almost every game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, visors are definitely a limitation on their part. So smoke and mimetism will definitely help quite a bit because they don't have great ways to mitigate that. They do have some. They do have a decent amount of direct templates, but you have to be really close for that.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we take a step back, since that kind of helps us frame the conversation a little bit in terms of what they're good and not so good at. why don't we take a look at some of the pieces that you're likely to see. If someone says, "Hey, I'm on Tunguska," these are the things that you can kind of bring to mind as likely picks. Where would you start on that? Like if we're playing and I sing Tunguska, what do you know I'm going to have?
Almost without a doubt, there's going to be at least one interventor. It's probably going to be the lieutenant because
Yep, very common.
it's a really good lieutenant at whip 15 and can also be fairly inexpensive, as little as 21 points. And it has a hacking device plus, so it's also a specialist. So you're almost always
Yeah.
going to see that. You're almost always going to see that paired up with Merry Problems. Like, I've seen so many Tunguska lists where that's the first two models people put in the list.
I could see that. Yeah, Merry Problems is good. Like, I think she's kind of fallen out of favor a bit, but I think that she's still a very strong pick that can get some work done if she's not kind of out in the wind. I think that there's a lot of temptation to utilize her forward deployment, and if you're not going first, that will just get her killed.
Yeah, that's it. It's only 4 inches, so terrain dependent. But yeah, if you don't support her, yeah, she'll get killed. But that right there, I see that combo, or at least one of them, but usually both, in almost every time I've faced Tunguska.
Yeah, I would say Tunguska, and I guess this kind of goes back to their weaknesses a little bit, is that their command structure is not terribly robust.
Yeah.
Like many nomads, their lieutenant options are fairly limited, and they're generally pretty obvious. Like if there's whip 15, the Tunguskan player has an interventor lieutenant, no question, and it must have a combi rifle. Like that, because they can't take a boarding shotgun on the lieutenant. And they want to take the shotgun because it saves you 3 points. But the lieutenant will always have a combi rifle. If it's whip 14, it's going to be a Securitate. Now, there'll probably be decoy Securitate, but that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then if it happens to be 13, then it's going to be either a Kriga, which is only going to be on the heavy machine gun, or a Grenzer, which is only going to be on the Discover Biometric Visor combi. Which I don't know if I've ever seen someone bring a Grenzer lieutenant. There's just not really any incentive to, and it is expensive compared to everything except the Kriza, but the Kriza brings more to the table.
I mean, I guess if you were playing decapitation, and because you also got specialist kills in that, right?
Yeah, there's special skills in decap.
So I guess not having an interventor lieutenant there would have been smart because gets
but you just bring
more
the Kriza.
points. Yeah.
So, like I've never seen a Grenzer lieutenant, and I wouldn't expect that either. So basically, almost always it'll be a Securitate or it'll be an interventor, and the whip will tell you which one it is.
Yeah. The Securitate is solid though.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely, as far as line lieutenant goes, it's not as cheap as it could be, but it's also whip 14, which is nice. So
and Warhorse.
Yeah, and Warhorse is great just in case.
Yeah, that's a thing. Is you can load up on Securitate and kind of not care as much if your lieutenant goes down, because you can just have them all sit in the back and still provide their regular orders to other things.
Yeah, like there's actually like a moderate amount of Warhorse in Tunguska.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say another common pick that you'll see in Tunguska are going to be the Hollow Men. And boy, do I love Hollow Men. They are a really cool piece, and they're kind of low frills. Like they have a very basic stat line that kind of points you in a very specific direction. Like these are middle of the road heavy infantry that want to shoot things, and they can do some objectives with a couple of them, and that's kind of what they have. But they have a lot of secret or kind of hidden durability with their remote presence and their structure, and they're super fast, being 6'2" with super jump.
Mm-hmm.
Like 8-inch jumps can get you on top of most buildings in the game, at least on most tables that I've seen. And so they can really take these plunging fire shots.
Mm-hmm.
They're reasonably durable. They are very cheap for heavy infantry.
Yeah.
These are 21 to 29 points. Like these will not break the bank. And like in an age of Harrises and duos, you can run a Holloman core and not feel bad about it.
Yeah. That said,
So I would say
there
they're
are
common
few
picks for sure.
things funnier than impersonators going into Hollow Men.
Sure. Yeah,
Because
they are
they don't want to
not
be
going to
there
do
because
anything.
they're CC11, so they're going to have a real bad time against an impersonator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, the other unit that I commonly see because it's very resilient and very order efficient overall is the Puppet Tactica Company,
Yep.
because you can get a Puppet Master with counterintelligence for as low as 11 points and then take up to 3 of the puppet bots, which, while they don't provide orders, they don't cost orders either when they lose. And you can get boarding shotgun forward observers for like 9 points. And they are
They're two
a two,
woos.
they're a 2 structure model with +1 burst on their BS attacks at BS 12. They also like only fits 10, but they dodge on 13s, which is pretty solid.
Hmm.
And they're whip 14 if you need them to reset for stuff, but like they're pretty solid. They have an AP marksman rifle for 14 and a with BS attack shock, and then a red fury for 16. Although that one I don't normally ever see. It's usually the 2 cheaper ones, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah. The
great.
SWC is hard.
Yeah, because they're control, so they move up, and only one of them gets to shoot as the spearhead. But then they get to really shine when you set them up for ARO because they can all shoot at that point. So they are something I've seen a lot, and they're very annoying and
Hmm.
frustrating because they're a little bit tough, and then you take one down, and then it basically did nothing other than make you waste orders doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Puppet Tactica are definitely a common pick. So, I mean, I feel like it's not even uncommon just to see a Puppet Master
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for 11
because
points to
you,
get counterintelligence, sure.
yeah, exactly. Or a 13-point mine layer if you can spare a
Mm-hmm.
couple points. Like
Yeah.
that's a really great use of them. So, one thing, if you are going into Tunguska and you see a Puppet Master, that means that they have counterintelligence. It will always be on the board because it can't hide in a marker state. And if you take down the Puppet Master, it will also turn off any bots that they control.
Yeah, so they try to hide them.
So if you can get back to the Puppet Master, you can kind of circumvent all of the heartache of trying to destroy puppet bots by dropping the Puppet Master.
Yes.
I would also say that Zellenkriegers / the character Krieger Denma Connolly,
Mm-hmm.
those are also very, very common picks. Like I think that you'll see Denma and or Zellenkriegers in almost every Tunguska list. Like these are their cheap warbands.
Mm-hmm.
The standard Kriegers are irregular, but they're only 8 points. And Den McConnelly becomes regular for 12 points and gets some notable upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be their source of cheap smoke, some CC deterrence, and some template weapons, and just general pieces to be obnoxious. One
Yeah.
thing to keep in mind with these guys is that all the Zellenkriegers, they are all structure. So if you see an engineer, you might want to double tap these guys because they look like man, but they are machine. And so those WIP 14, 15 engineers can pick them back up. And it's very common to see an engineer in Tunguska lists because it's so easy to reconstitute those forces because you can bring
Yeah.
back the Kriegers, the any of the remotes, of course, the Hollow Men. Fiddler herself is an engineer, and so
Mm-hmm.
she can fix herself if she goes into no wound and cap, and things like that.
Well, and the
So
clockmaker is arguably the best engineer in the game at whip 15 for 18 points.
I mean, there's Parvati, who's effective whip 18, but
Hmm.
yeah, as far as like your generic line
Does
troop
she have
engineers,
+1 burst on her gizmo kit?
I don't think so, but she's also a 2-wound doctor.
Fair
She
enough.
has all the degrees,
Yes.
but she's also twice as much. So
Yeah.
depends on if we mean better or more cost efficient.
I
But
mean,
yeah, clockmakers are great. Like they're very solid engineers.
mhm. The other thing that I see a lot of that are really good, and these I'm going to use these interchangeably because they fulfill a similar purpose. But the
Mhm.
specters and the hecklers, like the skirmishers in Tunguska,
Mhm.
are pretty solid. Specters are hidden deployment with infiltration, so that can be a lot of fun finding those out. I've played numerous games of like quadrant control style stuff where all of a sudden, very last turn, 2 or 3 specters, which granted they're
Hmm.
pricey at 28 points to start, but like
Yeah.
they just reveal in the final turn and just go into a zone and say, I control this now. So that can be really annoying.
Sure.
Uh, and then the hecklers are camouflage, not hidden deployment. They only have forward deployment 4 inches, but they fulfill a lot of that similar role as a skirmisher. So
Mhm.
they are also cheaper at 20 to 24 points, but I do see these fairly often instead of specters. Kind of just depends on which way the list wants to lean.
Yeah. We'll see hecklers much more commonly than specters, just because of how expensive specters are. But specters do
Mhm.
have some good loadouts. But yeah, the hecklers are definitely something to keep an eye on because they're kind of the boogeyman piece for a Tunguskan player who has a very active guided missile plan. Because one of those options, um, maybe the most common option, is the combi jammer fast panda profile. Because you start out 4 inches up, you can move as a camo marker more or less uncontested as long as you don't run into mines or similar.
Mhm.
And then you can, even if you do get revealed in that order, you can move again and then drop a fast panda anywhere in your zone of control. And you can get very, very extensive reach on your hacking area, if even if it costs the heckler's life. But yeah, that's kind of like if someone has a guided missile remote, like that is one of those things where, oh, that camo marker, that's probably going to drop a panda near me.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of which, it is also the only camouflage marker that they can take.
Mhm.
That's MIM 3. So hecklers, it's always going to be a heckler or a mine. And then the only MIM 6 camo marker is, of course, the Spectre. So they do generally play with most of their cards on the table.
Mhm.
Like they got a little bit of AD and a little bit of HD, but basically almost no camo. So very limited in that regard. So a lot of it is kind of what you see is what you get mostly. But we'll
Mhm.
get to that once we get to like more of their tricks to look out for. Um,
Yeah.
I would also say the GoPod is something that shows up fairly frequently. Not all the time, but often enough, and it's something to just consider. Like, look at your rooftops and see where the high points on the table are, and can you jump up about 7 inches or so and see your guys on a rooftop, even if they're prone, because you might want to put them behind buildings instead. GoPods
GoPod
are.
can go to hell.
It was one time.
I don't care. I'm traumatized.
Yeah, the GoPods are like all vehicles. The GoPods are very fast. They have pretty reasonable armaments. They shoot fairly well. They have a peripheral that just kind of hurts your optimal AROs a bit because you don't necessarily want to get flash pulsed either. And the main thing is that if you can land on the GoPod, it's not terribly hard to drop. Usually, Ian, typically,
Mhm.
dice being what they are. But
Mhm.
generally, it's not very hard to knock them down if you actually start landing on them. But yeah, I would say that those are some of those pieces where you're likely to see those. Now, of course, there are plenty of other pieces that will commonly make lists, like motorized bounty hunters are pretty common.
Mhm.
Authorized bounty hunters, the ones on foot. Obviously, your flash bots and things along those lines. So there are definitely a variety of ways that you might see a Tunguska list show
Mhm.
up, but these are some of those pieces that are just very potent
I
that
mean,
also show up commonly.
yeah, I mean, I would add one more,
Mhm.
the Salamandra,
That's fair. We touched on
because
the
it is
Salamandra, but not necessarily in this section, so that's a good call.
yeah, because the Salamandra is not only one of the coolest looking tag models in the game, but
Yeah, she is.
its stat line is one of the coolest tag models in the game because it's so good. It be the BS-14, the BTS of 9, Armor 8, like, it does what it needs to do. It's fairly resilient. NCO is fine in exchange for tactical awareness like it used to have, but it's the HRMC and the heavy flamethrower. I am a little sad that they lost the killer hacker pilot when they moved over to everything having the ancillary bots, but that's fine. That's fine.
Their tag pilot's still a killer hacker. She's just not in the tag anymore.
That is true. You can take the
The tag
Salamander
Triba.
pilot tag
Mhm.
driver to give the bonuses, and that is a killer hacker. So I will concede that all of the cool pilots that we had in the past are in the game still, just as a different thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
And notably, that's a 10-point killer hacker.
yes.
That can join some fire teams, which is
Hmm.
not bad at all.
That's cyber mines too.
Mhm.
Gross. But yeah, the salamander, it's just I'm always prepared to face a salamandra if I am playing against Tunguska. Because if you're
Sure.
gonna take a big flashy model, like it's the big flashy model for the faction.
Yeah, I agree. And so that's one of those things where you might not necessarily expect the big guns from Tunguska, but that is definitely a style they can lean into with the Salamandra in particular, to a lesser extent, the Krizaborak, and the Anaconda is kind of a new contender now that can
Hmm.
also play that role as kind of an in
Yeah.
between those two piece.
Yeah.
So they can kind of throw some curveballs at you that way, where
Mhm.
you might not expect them to be, to necessarily pack a bunch of big guns, but they can fit a fair few in there. They just don't tend to be like armor cracking weapons
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, and then the Salamander has one of what, 5 HRMCs in the game?
Yeah, there's not a lot. There are a handful, but not a ton.
Yeah, as it's the Yan Hao has a profile, the Drago, of
Drago, the
course.
drummer,
The drummer is the 5th
uh,
one, and then the, combined army,
oh, the overdrawn. Yeah.
yeah, the overdrawn.
Is that all of them? I don't know if it's all of them offhand, but yeah, there's not a lot.
Yeah. Did they give one to the Morat tag? They might have given one to that.
Oh, the bull track. It might. I
Yeah, I
think I
think
think you're right. I think it's that and aura autocannon.
yeah, so 7 models in the game, which I'm
Mhm.
I'm holding firm there. Yeah, I don't care if it's true or not. Have this, and one of them is the Salamandra, and so that's actually like a huge draw to it because it's not a common weapon, and it
Sure.
is just a really neat one. And I really like the underslung aspect of it.
Yeah, it
It's
looks good.
it looks fantastic. It's great. The
Yeah.
Zeta has one. There's 8.
Oh, right. I don't know how I forgot the Zeta, but true.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it used to only be like 2 or 3 models had one.
yeah, yeah. It was very rare before. Now it's just fairly rare. But yeah, so I think those are the things that you will commonly want to look out for. Like those are things that will show up very frequently. But there are some hidden tricks that they have. So we want to kind of go over those and talk about what is the hidden information you can expect. in a Tunguska list. Now, luckily, there's not a lot. We did kind of talk about the lieutenant portion earlier, where Whip 15 means it's an interventor with a combi rifle. Whip 14 means it's a plain combi Securitate and things like that. But their hidden deployment, they have the Spectre, and it's kind of what you would expect out of most MIM6 skirmishers. It's MIM6, camouflage, hidden deployment, infiltration, with a variety of loadouts. It can be an FO or a killer hacker or have a multi-sniper, the things that you would generally expect. If there's a camo marker that is not from a mine layer, and all the mine layers are visible, so you'll know if there's mine layers nearby, then it's going to be a heckler. They don't bring impersonation. They do technically have one hollow mask / hollow projector model.
Yep, Father Sforza.
Father Sforza. Not something you'll see very often.
No,
he's
and I think
cool,
his deal, like the hollow projector, is neat because you can get the surprise attack off of it, but know it's him. It's
right.
The regular hollow mask in a fire team where it's this guy with a combi rifle is out here, you're like, I'm gonna shoot at him, and he goes, cool, it's actually Sforza with a viral rifle, have fun with that.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So you won't really have to worry about those sorts of obfuscated models just because Sforza doesn't show up terribly often.
No.
I think that he's just he's at a very competitive, or rather at a price point that has a lot of competition in Tunguska. Like they have a lot of good things to mess around with in the 20-30 point bracket. So that just leaves airborne deployment. And they don't have many of those either. They have one Meteor Zond, which is essentially a Fort Observer bot that flies, but is quite good. It does have an option for light shotgun EM carbine, which is quite dangerous, but it has all the other things you would expect off of a Fort Observer bot. Like it is a repeater. It has it's a Fort Observer, of course. It has sensor, triangulated fire, and so on. But it does have, because it's a drop troop, it does have 6-4 move with super jump jet propulsion. And the Meteor Zond has ECM Hacker -3, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So there's up to one of those.
Take out the Evo bot first.
Yeah, right.
It's only Fizz 12, so take out the Evo bot.
Yeah, Fizz 12 is not terribly reliable, but with a 6-4 super jump, even if it parachutes in, like it can get into some pretty inconvenient places pretty quick.
Yes.
And then the very dangerous other option is Raoul Spectre. So this is the other AD option. So if you see points off the board, which is kind of hard to hide with Tunguska unless they're, I guess they could be bluffing Spectres. Bluffing Spectre with Spectres, but Raoul Spectre is very, very good. So if you don't see a full 15 on the table, keep your backline safe, because Raoul Spectre can just tear through a lot of stuff potentially. Particularly with the October update, he got even better.
Yeah.
He's 2 vitality. He's 6-2 move with super jump jet propulsion, so he's very maneuverable. He dodges really well with Fizz 13 with a bang bomb, putting him up to 17 because we count with 4s in Infinity. CC 22 and Martial Arts 3 means he's a scary close quarters combatant because he also has Natural Born Warrior. He's a specialist. He's got an EM close combat weapon, which is arguably the best close combat weapon you can get. He's got a template with a boarding pistol with an extra point of damage. He's got a +1 burst boarding shotgun. He gained a special die in his drop bear, so it's easier to throw those out before he comes around a corner to fight something. Like,
and the
this
mimetism
guy
-6.
Yeah, and he's mimetism -6.
And he dodges an extra 2 inches.
Yeah. So he can dodge quite well. He doesn't get the bang bomb unless he's shot at with a non-template. So he dodges pretty well, unless you're shooting at him, in which case he dodges very well. But yeah, Raoul Spectre is just a monster. If you don't see 15 orders on the table, or or if you can count points, this guy's in the mid 30s, so it's not insignificant. But this is a guy who can tear up a backline and more besides. So keep your backline safe. Watch your
Mhm.
table edges, things like that, because Raoul Spectre is a nasty surprise if you're not ready for him.
Yeah, it's very fitting for Infinity Moon Knight.
Right. So yeah, so as far as their surprises, it's pretty limited. Like I said earlier, they kind of play with most of their cards on the table, but they have a couple aces up the sleeves, as it were. So, tools and strategies to kind of fight against Tunguska. Now, we've touched on this a little bit, but uh, Ian, what would you say is kind of like first order of operations? Again, you're at an event, someone says Tunguska. What are you trying to plan for to deal with them? Like how are you planning to deal with it? I know that's hard to say without a faction in mind, but if you want to use a faction example, feel free.
In general, first order of business is to try to project my own hacking network if I have one, while limiting their hacking network if possible. Which a lot of that means if I have pitchers or deployable repeaters or fast models with repeaters, whatever, I'm trying to get those into position early to make it harder for them to advance. At the same time, I'm trying to hunt down their repeater network projection. So their models with pitchers, their repeaters, things like that, and take those out so I can protect my stuff that's hackable. Because if they do get a chance to hack my stuff, it's very likely to not go my way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say that like Tunguska is a faction that if you kind of get the initiative, either, mechanically in game terms or just metaphorically on the table, then you can kind of box them in a little bit. And it can be hard because most of their maneuverability just comes from hopping around the table as opposed
Mhm.
to things dropping in. Like there are two AVA 1 drop troops, as we discussed. There's one infiltrator, and there's a couple 4-inch forward deployment options. Like most of their stuff is going to be in their DZ. And so if you can kind of lay down some significant AROs, it can be kind of hard for them to just shoot past.
Mhm.
And so that forces them to start using their obfuscation tools to move around, which drains on orders and can make it just a little bit more difficult for them to actually progress up the field and advance their game plan. Now, I would say that counter hacking is definitely an option, but you have to be very careful with that because if you launch your repeaters and you get them in range of an enemy hacker, but then all your hackers have to deal with them whenever you're activating.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to be mindful there. But I would say, as maybe an alternative to just trying to beat them in the info war game, is you can scalpel out their hackers. So using your own combat jump pieces,
Mhm.
or if you have impersonators or other reach pieces like that, using those to go after that hacking network. And especially if there happens to be a Vertigo Zond, the guided bot, if there's a GML on the board, that's of course a priority to pick up because
Yeah.
then all of your non-hackable units can kind of breathe easier moving through enemy repeaters. They may get spotlit still, and that's fine, but that's much better than just eating missiles for free.
Yeah. The solution is Duroc. It's always Duroc. Just bring
If the
Duroc.
solution's always Duroc, right? I mean, that's fair. Tunguska does not like Duroc, I don't think.
No, no,
I mean, I
they
don't
do
think anyone
not.
really does.
It's fair. It's not what you
I
want to
mean,
see showing up in your deployment zone.
I guess they're vulnerable. He's vulnerable to EM isolation now, right?
Yeah, because
So,
they're only immunity to arm now.
so yeah. So if you have something like In other factions, I mean, if you have like a Raven Eye officer or a Harbinger or something like with EM Mind Layer, that can give him pause. But anyway, that's not Tunguska. You don't have to worry about that. Bring Duroc. Mess stuff up. So otherwise, other strategies besides kind of like aggressively boxing in Tunguska or going after their network/hackers. Another thing you can use in your games is to apply CC units to where they are weak because they, as we mentioned earlier, they only have a couple powerful CC units and they aren't going to be everywhere. And so those other units generally, if they're good at shooting, they're not going to be a very credible range threat. That's very broad strokes, but if you're looking at Holomen or Kriza or the Salamandra or the Anaconda or Grenzers or, things like that, if you have something that is reasonable in CC, that's going to be enough to eliminate or at least stall those pieces. And there are other units that are good in CC, generally are pretty expensive, and like I said, you can't have them everywhere at once anyway. And so you're not going to see very many of them either, usually. You might see a couple Creakers, which again are perfectly serviceable in CC, but aren't amazing. And you'll likely see like Perseus is a very common pick that goes with the Holomen. He's kind of in a similar bracket, but brings other useful tools. But that's kind of the common ones. So applying CC outside of their couple CC specialists will go a long way.
Another thing you can do is just try the straightforward approach. They do have some very good gunfighters, but there are better gunfighters out there. So sometimes applying more bullets more frequently is the answer. Go ahead, high burst. Try to pick the face to face that you want one at a time, and just surgically take out their arrows that you need to take out so that you can advance.
Yeah, and if you have high mimetism gun pieces, that will help quite a bit. MSV can be pretty useful against Tunguska, but again, they have easy access to white noise, so you kind of have to be careful with that. And just keep in mind where those repeaters are. But it's very easy for Tunguska, and something that we didn't touch on, but probably should, are fire teams for Tunguska. So it's very easy for them. They have a lot of wild cards, and while most wild cards don't... Yeah, exactly. It's a ton. And so they can make pretty versatile fire teams, but it's usually at the cost of fire team level. Like, it's kind of hard for them to get a lot of those interesting pieces and still maintain a reasonable fire team level. Like, typically, you're going to see a couple Securitate escorting someone, or a couple Holomen is a pretty common one, or like a Holomen and Perseus and something. And so they do have a lot of really interesting fire team compositions they can make, but typically, unless you're running like a Holomen core, because you're almost never going to see like a Grenzer core or a full Securitate core or something like that. Like a chair killer core. Never happening.
I've seen it once.
You've seen it once. Yeah. Like I believe it. Somebody will run it. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you're not really going to see high fire team levels. And so stealth units can really help you out a lot because they don't have any hackers that can ignore stealth, and they don't have an easy way to get that. Like, basically the best option they have probably is to either bring a pure 5-man Securitate core, or to bring, more likely, a Holomen core, and probably Perseus because he counts and he's in there somewhere usually.
Yeah.
So stealth pieces.
Yeah, the other thing you might see a lot of is the bounty hunter teams, because they're cheap. You can have a Harris, but you can have a ton of duos, and a bunch of those wild card models are characters with that'll get bonus with Bounty Hunter. So, throwing
Yes.
Miranda or Sforza or Wolfgang down in a duo with a regular Bounty Hunter is a super cheap way to get the special die and just have guys running around the board messing stuff up.
Yeah, and I suppose there's kind of a special shout out for Miranda,
Mhm.
who effectively in a team she's bordering on an EM heavy machine gun. She has she had the profile that you'll basically always see with Miranda is the combi rifle +1 burst emitter. Then she gets an extra special die with a bounty hunter, which you'll typically just see like a 12-point bounty hunter with her. And that is scary. Like she's Mim 6, she's a reasonable BS 12, but she has marksmanship.
Yeah.
And so she can really hammer those kind of high tech targets. Like she can turn off a tag very easily if she
And
gets inside of it.
and she is also deceptive. She's only CC 19, so don't think you can just take her out and CC easily, because even without martial arts or anything like that, she still has CC attack -6. So unless you've got natural born
Mhm.
warrior, you're gonna take a pretty solid penalty that'll bring most models closer to her level.
Yeah, yeah, you're looking at just she kind of puts things in dice off territory, which
Yeah.
is not really where you want to be considering she's packing a monofilament weapon.
Hmm.
It's not that she's wildly good with it, but it's enough that you don't want to miss that roll and then just get knocked off the table. But yeah, so as far as other kind of strategies you can employ, I would say generally anything that has good reach, like we've talked about, vehicles are actually another good potential option because they don't tend to have good visors.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm seeing the Grenzer less frequently,
Hmm.
and that's kind of really the main visor that most often showed up. And so all these MIM6 flyers are reasonable options, and other drop troops, like we mentioned, and things like that. But Tunguska, because a lot of the pieces are kind of moderately costed, like this is a faction where your line troop is, let's see, where did it go? 13 points, I think it is for Seguratate.
Hmm.
Yes, that's right. So you're looking at roughly combined army prices for your line troops. And that kind of leaves you with a faction that kind of has to have a little bit of a soft underbelly. Like you're going to see flash bots, you're going to see the Zellenkriegers or Denma, uh, and just generally other options that try and bring the cost down. Uh, Authorized bounty hunters are pretty common for that reason, just because you can get them just a little bit cheaper than the baseline troops. But then you have these squishy hackers in the backfield, like the interventors that,
Hmm.
or the puppet masters to keep the puppets running, things like that. Like there's usually kind of this selection of units in the backfield that doesn't want to physically actively participate in the battle. So
Yeah.
scalping those will go a long way. So yeah, so those are some strategies you can use to kind of stymie your Tunguskan opponents. And we're just about ready for final thoughts, but before we get there, we did just want to say a quick thank you to our supporters on Patreon. We really appreciate you, and it helps us keep going with what we're doing here. So, if you want to be a part of that, we'd invite you to go check us out over at patreon.com/metachemistry. And if that's either not interesting or you're not in a position to, please make sure to rate the show. You can also find us on YouTube where you can like and subscribe to the channel and all of those good social media things to support us that way without having to spend any money. But if you do want to join our Patreon, then we give some benefits back as a show of gratitude, such as early access to episodes, final voting in polls. Uh, we also have some member specific channels on our Discord. And speaking of, you can join our Discord, which is in the show notes as always, and we'd love to have you there. That's open for anybody who wants to join, and it's just a great place to chat more Infinity. If you want to see painting projects or go over lists or speculate on the next wave release that will be happening or whatever you'd like to do there. Yeah, we have a place for it. So, with that said, Ian, final thoughts on taking down Tunguska?
They can be a bit tough to take down depending on how hackable your stuff is and whether or not you have the tools to kind of come at them sideways and take some of their stuff out and start trimming down their capabilities. But it's doable. As in everything in Infinity, there's always a way to do it.
Sure.
And yep, and I think that they're a really good faction. I think that they
Yeah.
are fairly strong, and especially in the things that they specialize in. But they also have some stuff that they are weak against that you can exploit. Amongst those that we've talked about, not having great CC and not having good visors and things, so you can kind of smoke your way there and chop them up if you need to. So
Mm-hmm.
they're a lot of fun to play against. I think they provide some not necessarily unique, but some weightedly different challenge from a lot of other factions in how they construct. So I think that they do need a little bit of a plan if you're going to go up against them because their hacking is so good, or you just play Ariadne and you don't care for the most part. But
I think you just watch out for missiles.
yeah, you just watch out for missiles. But they definitely they have their own niche and they are quite good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a big portion of it because I think that that's the thing that comes to mind. Because it's the home of the Interventor, hacking superiority is just implied. And they don't have to build that way, but it's just so easy and natural to fit into their game plan that you need to be worried about Contronic Assault and have a way to either isolate and pick off their hackers, um, or have some other way to kind of get in there and tear apart all of the squishy parts of the list. Because it's generally easy to do. They do have some interesting like deployment zone defense options. Like we mentioned, the Puppet Tactica with Mine Layer. There's also the Lunicod with Mine Laying Crazy Koalas. And there's other options like that they can use to kind of keep things safe-ish. But yeah, your usual reach tools will usually get the job done even if they go down in the process. And killing that Interventor Lieutenant or destroying that guided missile bot or turning off those puppets or a combination thereof will really help you advance your game plan there. So I think kind of deep diving aggression goes very well into Tunguska, as Ian put it, the Duroc effect. But yeah, so those are the sorts of things to keep an eye out for. Luckily, if you're playing against Tunguska, most of what you see is what you get, so you can kind of get an idea for what they have on the table, and that's going to be most of it. And there's not a lot of surprises they can bring to bear. They generally have a fairly telegraphed game plan, so you can kind of use that to your advantage a little bit. We hope you enjoyed our episode on taking down the mob, and on behalf of Metachemistry, I've been Devin.
And Ian, and that's the meta.